All right, good afternoon. My name's Sean Massey. I'm here to talk today about something, a little challenge that we've dealt with in the EUC world for a while. And that challenge is around being able to deliver a customized set of services and solutions to users without having to add significantly to our endpoint management burden. So we call this here keeping it in context. So a little bit about me. I'm a technical architect for Ahead based out of Chicago. I'm from Wisconsin. And that's about all you need to know for now. So let's kind of talk about the landscape of EUC here for a second, right? So today, users want mobility. I mean, we just heard in the keynote this morning, about Workspace ONE and how they're trying to drive that convergence between identity and mobility and making it easier for end users to access their applications anytime, anywhere. On the same token, though, IT wants control. They want to be able to limit what users can access and make sure that it's secure and that there's no problems with the solution that they're working with. So in traditional environments where there's a lot of desktops and laptops, VDI can solve this problem. But in the process, it introduces a lot of new ones, right? So VDI gives us mobility. It gives users the ability to work anytime, anywhere, from a familiar context and desktop environment. But if we need to control what they can do when they're local versus remote, we introduce a lot of new problems. There's a lot of complexity added to our management when we have to start adding in different desktop pools, different OUs, different group policies to make that work. So how do we do this, right? If I'm a virtual desktop administrator, I create my first desktop, I add my applications in, I create a pool. But then what if a department comes to me and says, well, I want my users to be able to access it remotely, but this application here has some sensitive data in it. They can't access it from home. So then I have to take that base image, clone it, strip out that application. Then I need to create a new desktop pool around that. Well, now what if they come back and say, well, hey, performance from home is really bad. We need different settings. We don't want them to print. We don't want them to have access to their local client drive or things like that. We're worried about data security. We're worried about performance. Well, now, I have to control all that through group policy. So that means I have to create a new organizational unit in Active Directory. I have to create a new set of group policies that have to be tested before I can apply them specifically to that pool. So the net result is we end up spending much more time managing our desktops and our environment to meet the specifics of these use cases. So how do we address this? And the answer to that is context awareness. Right, so what context awareness does is it looks at different variables in the user session. So that could be things like whether they're connecting internally or externally. What's the IP address that they're connecting from? What's the IP address of the desktop? What security groups is that user in? Based on those variables around the session, we can then apply a number of different policies. Those policies are evaluated when the user logs in or when the user reconnects to their session. So what this means is if I'm a user and I have access to sensitive data, I can set up a policy that says when this user connects remotely, they can't launch a specific application. We're going to turn off print redirection. We're going to turn off client drive redirection. So this user gets in and they're very limited in what they can do. But if they disconnect their session and go back to the office, when they sign in again, those policies will be reevaluated. That desktop or that application that they couldn't run will now be unlocked. So they'll be able to access that desktop, or access that application, and run it and do their normal work. Maybe at that time too, we turn on print redirection so they'll be able to print documents because we know it's going to a secure printer. The net benefit, though, is that this eliminates the need for multiple desktop pools, multiple organizational units. It allows us to deal with internal and external use cases, and it allows us to deal with them dynamically. So now I can have 1 or 2 global desktop pools that users log into, and I'm adjusting those settings on the fly based on the context of the user. So this gives us overall simplified administration. Now, I did plan to have a demo for this. Unfortunately, I won't be able to run it today. So that's it. This is a really short one. That's